Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Diablo 3 Build Factory. My name is Phobos, and today's topic will be a comparison episode again, but this time about a skill, namely Impale, and we're gonna compare two different runes of this skill and figure out which one of these does more overall damage. So the runes of choice will be Grievous Wounds versus Chemical Burn. And I would say, without further ado, let's get this started and figure out which one of these is better. Let's start with Grievous Wounds, and if you know my playstyle and if you know my previous videos, I argued a lot that this rune is really good because your critical strikes basically skyrocket through the roof, and most of the time your critical strikes are really high, over 300,000 or 400,000. It basically depends on your gear. But if we look at the average overall damage, we have to calculate this correctly. So let's say our basic critical hit chance is at about 15%. If we calculate this, and we have to keep in mind this bonus is basically additive, so it adds another 250% weapon damage to your critical hits. You are at 250% plus 0.15, that's the critical hit chance, fold 500%. And that leaves you with an average damage per shot of 325%, which is quite nice, but we have to compare it to Chemical Burn. So what damage or what overall damage does Chemical Burn do? First off, what is the Chemical Burn rune? A lot of people might not be familiar with this rune because a lot of people overlook this rune. Myself included, I totally overlooked this rune. So basically, if you attack an enemy with Impale with this rune activated, you will leave a dot, and dot stands for damage over time. And basically you have 2 seconds, and 2 seconds equals 4 ticks, which conclude in 125% weapon damage. And basically every Impale strike that you successfully hit will leave that dot, which will tick for 125% weapon damage each. So you have 4 ticks of 125% weapon damage total, not each, but total, and that's pretty nice. Now for the calculation. If you want to calculate this, you basically have to use the same formula, which is basically 375% plus 0.15, that's the critical hit chance again, fold 375, and that leaves you with 431.25 average damage per shot. And that's quite interesting because that basically means you do more average damage per shot than with Grievous Wounds, and rightfully so. While I was testing that, I really enjoyed this rune, and I figured that out really fast that this rune really does more damage than the Grievous Wounds rune. It isn't only in the mathematics, it is also in the playstyle, because even if you don't do a critical strike, most likely the enemies will die due to the dot, and that is quite convenient, of course, but it's also really awesome to see that you don't have to shoot the enemy twice, for instance. Another important fact about Chemical Burn, and which can't be overlooked, is that each Chemical Burn dot tick can also be a critical strike, and that pushes your damage count to a really high number if you think about it. On the other hand, you have to keep in mind that your critical strikes will not be as high as with Grievous Wounds. That's obviously the case, but you should sacrifice these really high damage numbers in order to gain a overall damage buff. And that's what I just did as well. I changed from Grievous Wounds to Chemical Burn, and I never looked back. Credit for this episode goes to Santa Ranger, who basically came up with this topic, and I'm really grateful because basically, like I already said, I wouldn't have come up with this myself because I totally overlooked Chemical Burn. This is totally my fault, and I'm really grateful for your suggestions and for your good advice. So basically, thanks a lot. All the credit goes to Santa Ranger, and if you guys have suggestions or topics which I should elaborate on, make sure to leave them in the comment section below. I'm always looking for awesome topics or awesome comparisons. And that's basically it for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, make sure to press the like button, and if you want to stay up to date of the Diablo 3 Build Factory, make sure to press that subscribe button. And I hope I see you guys next time. Have a good one, take care, and goodbye.